Home show.
Coming to you alive through the power of the interwebs. Inside the Green Room studio from the flagship source of the Earth Mix Garden Products Network, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates, bringing you all the wisdom and wit you'll ever need to tackle your garden and your projects. Now broadcasting alive from Bates Nursery and Garden Center at 3810 Whites Creek Pike, just 1 mile north of exit 19 off Briley Parkway, or 0.9 miles as the Josh drives. Here's Josh Cary and David Bates.
Oh yeah, everybody knows what that music means. It's now time to climb a tree, don your loincloth, and survey the backyard, because you got to find a project. You must lay it in the unmarked grave of history. Welcome in, everybody. It is your Saturday morning tradition. It is the At Home Show. I am Josh Cary.
And I am David Bates, and it is the beginning of spring. We're going to be talking native plants today because we can.
We are.
And, we get to decide what we talk about, and, we know people, Josh.
It's our show.
It's our show.
No more program directors.
We are program director. That's
Don't
what we are.
cuss me. Do not use disparaging terms to me like that.
I'm not going to call you a program director, but, we're here to talk about not just that, but whatever you want to talk about.
Yep.
We do invite you. See this phone number right here? 615-499-6690. That's how you can reach us. You can either call, you can leave a message, or you can text us. You can also message us through our Facebook site.
Yes, you can.
Go to the At Home Show Facebook site on Facebook. Check that out. Leave us a message.
Don't do it on Twitter.
Well, no, we probably won't see it.
Huh?
I mean, you can watch us on Twitter.
You can.
And
but don't go to the Facebook site on Twitter.
No, it's hard to
If you
get
want to
there.
tweet, you go to Twitter.
You go to, right, that's right.
Okay.
So that's the way that works.
You can do YouTube, too.
You can do YouTube.
We are live.
And we do ask that you share it out there on your Facebook page.
And subscribe.
Share it and subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell. We don't really know what it does when you ring the bell, but
That's
it does.
on Facebook, yep.
But, it actually, you need to do that on YouTube as well.
You really?
Yeah.
Don't point that thing at me.
I will point at you whenever I get ready to point at you. So, anyway, let's talk a little bit of the weather here. It is the first day of spring. Happy spring, everyone. It finally got here, and boy, does it feel like it. Today is Saturday, the 20th of March, and 65 degrees for the high today. Partly cloudy, so it's going to be a very mild, pleasant, perfect springtime weather. It's going to have mild wind conditions. We've got 36 for the overnight low, so chilly but not frigid by any stretch. On Sunday, a little bit more of the same, mostly sunny, a few less clouds, 65 degrees, 43 for the overnight low. Monday, we're going to warm up just a bit more to 70 degrees. Again, partly cloudy, and we get some storms as we move in showers into the week. That goes with springtime, Josh. It just is part of it. I think it's March showers get April flowers is what it should be, but it doesn't fit quite right. Anyway, and by next Friday, it looks like it's going to be sun again. None of that really means I'm not even going to go out here because it doesn't mean anything. I've been offered through Weather Underground. I've got the pro level already that gives you the 10-day forecast, and for $5 more a month,
Really?
I can get the 14-day forecast. Now the 10-day already doesn't mean anything, but for $5 more, I can get more information that means absolutely nothing. So I'm pondering it, but probably
That's
not going to go.
$60 a year, David Bates.
Yes, it is. I'm just going to stay with the level I've got currently. It's 35 degrees here in Music City, live from the Green Room here, and we're really grateful to have everybody here today and participating in our program. And
before we get started,
yes.
have you noticed that there is a plague upon the world in Middle Tennessee?
Well, I did notice because it was so well documented on the At Home Show page, and
You didn't even need that. You just had to use your
Sniffer.
you
sniffer.
only need olfactory senses to be able to.
We speak, of
discern it.
course,
The great-
about the Bradford pear tree.
Yes, the Great White Plague, and
Yes.
the one thing that I think is a perfect complement to what we're going to be talking. It is the antithesis of what we're going to talk
There's
about.
nothing perfect about a Bradford
No,
pear
it's
tree.
except it's in perfect opposition. It stands for everything that is wrong with plants that are hybridized. It
Yes.
is an experiment that went terribly wrong, and it will take quite a lot to ever undo that. And a very concerted effort on a lot of people's part. So we'll probably discuss that here more as we
Will
go through
be
the program.
the membership drive for the Bradford Pear Eradication Society starts now.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah.
a little
And
bit
we-
of a hiatus, but
the spring 2021 edition of
Yes.
it. And so you and if you want to, you can become like the poster child. You can take pictures and
post them on.
Josh will post them.
Josh will.
Josh will.
Josh will. Okay, certainly. Josh.
Josh.
However you want to pronounce it. Yeah.
All righty, 615-499-6690 is the number to join us here on the At Home
And it is
Show.
going to be a gorgeous day.
Glorious
If
day.
anything, if yesterday was any indication to the level of excitement that people have about getting out and digging in the dirt and getting plants in the ground, today should be really a very busy day. And of course, independent garden centers all around the area and all across the country. Really, this is our Christmas season, so to speak. You know, this is how that we celebrate. For those of us in the industry, I'm not going to call it love-hate, but there's always anxiety because the demands are so great, and you worry that you're going to be able to meet the needs that everybody has simultaneously. That's the difficulty.
Well, just do the Scotty principle. You know, don't under promise and over deliver. That Bates is notorious for doing that.
We try to, we try to make things. We try to make things. We try to have a reasonable level of.
If I demand warp power in 37 seconds, and you say it's going to,
you can't have it, Captain.
Why?
We got no more powder. I've given you all I got already.
Shrek is here this morning.
Correct. Wow. Okay.
All right,
Hey, let's talk for just a moment about we mentioned digging in the dirt. There's nothing better to dig in the dirt and have right as your companion, and then Earth Mix Garden Products. And of course, at Earth Mix Garden Products, we really work hard at trying to produce the most viable 100% organic soils, and they're made right here in Middle Tennessee. Remember, success begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix Garden Products, and
It does.
those are available only at independent garden centers all around Middle Tennessee, Kentucky, also in southern Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. So check out the website. All you got to do is go over to earthmix.net and click on the Find Earth Mix tab. And once you click on that, you'll see a map comes up and all of the locations all over the area. Once the map loads up, there it is. You see all the locations around, and there's more coming all along. So you can zoom in and find the location nearest you, or just put your address in right here for a turn-by-turn set of directions directly. There's Greenfield Plant Farm, by the way. So you can check out what you want to see, but Earth Mix Garden Products, we got a complete array of products to meet any gardening need you have, whether you're wanting to build up the existing soil, perhaps suggest using supernatural organic compost that we produce.
I did. I used 2 bags this week.
It's a great product, and you may have had some settling that occurred over the previous year that gives you something to kind of fill that back in with, and you incorporate that in, and it has all the great stuff, including endo and ecto mycorrhiza and humic acid, all the natural fertility ingredients that help your plants grow the best. So remember this: success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix Garden Products, and we appreciate giving us that moment to talk about that.
David Bates.
Yes.
Look across the studio.
Oh my goodness. We have got guests in studio.
Yes.
And let me tell you something here. We've got, of course, everybody knows Kim Bradley.
Nashville's favorite gardener.
She is the
Absolutely.
She really has made a name for herself in Middle Tennessee.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave.
She's worked in some of the most preeminent gardens around town, and she continues to hone her skills. And she's now expanding her horizons and associating with a lot of great charity work that she's doing, working with others. And one of those is on her right, our left, Pandy Upchurch. Let me tell you about Pandy. You may not know about Pandy, but she doesn't know I've done a little research on her.
Uh-oh. Stalker.
Pandy Upchurch has a bachelor's degree in wildlife and fisheries science from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and a master's degree in biology from Austin Peay State University.
Wow.
She has been an interpretive naturalist for 35 years. She only looks 36. How is that possible? At such places as the Nature Station at Land Between the Lakes, Dunbar Cave State Natural Area, and Warner Parks Nature Center. In 2003, she worked as the outreach coordinator for the Center of Environmental Education at Middle Tennessee State University. She was the Middle Tennessee Wildlife Diversity Coordinator for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency for 7 years, and a planner for the State Wildlife Action Plan for species of greatest conservation need. She taught biology at Columbia State Community College for 2 years. She returned to TWRA in 2012 and served as the in-stream flow and Project Wild coordinator for Tennessee for 4.5 years. She is now TWRA's Assistant Chief of Biodiversity and Endangered Species Coordinator. We welcome Pandy Upchurch. Also, welcome. So, okay.
And she also knows Doug Markham.
She, what does that say about her? I built her all up, and now we've spilled that. So, okay. Now your given name is Andrea or Andrea.
Correct.
Now, how did Pandy get stuck on you?
Well, I'm a child of the '60s, and you can tell with all that background. But Andy Pandy was a cartoon character.
Okay.
In the 60s. And my name was Andrea, and even my brother couldn't say Andrea. He called me Andra, and then every teacher or daycare, whatever, would mispronounce it. Andrea, Andra. They never knew. So Andy Pandy. It was just easier.
Wow.
And then Pandy. There were so many Andys in the family already that Pandy was just
and
easier.
Pandy has its own wonderful uniqueness, so you don't meet a Pandy every day. So we welcome you to the program. Now, so tell us about what it is that you do for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency and as a Tennessee naturalist. What is that all about?
Absolutely. So on days like today, I wear 2 hats. And so when I'm with the Tennessee
I
Wildlife...
only see one.
Well,
That's
I
a
know,
stocking
but
cap.
I have an extra head you can't see. But on days like today, I wear a couple of hats. One with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and there I'm a wildlife biologist. That's my background. And I've always been in non-game. And so what is non-game? And non-game means there are about 5% of the species of the state that you hunt, and there's about 95% of the species that you don't hunt.
They're the ones that are kind of stationary, right? The non-game ones, they tend to stay put. That means the trees and shrubs and plants and all that. So.
Well, non-game just means that it's the songbirds, it's the salamanders,
okay.
it's the snakes, it's crayfish that you can't use as bait. So it's everything that you do not hunt or use in a consumptive manner. And then with endangered species and species of greatest conservation need, it's the agency trying to prevent species from becoming endangered.
So what do you do to create awareness to prevent things from being used in a fashion that they are not intended?
Right. Well, we have a great I&E department, as you know, over at TWRA.
Right.
But we also just talk to folks. We work with universities a great deal. The more I rise up in the agency, the more I kind of work through others. And so we work with UT doing mussel surveys. Mussels is one of the things that people don't think about, but they are the things in our streams that are keeping our streams clean. And so we work with the University of Tennessee, we work with Tennessee Tech, we work with Austin Peay, all of them doing mussel surveys, letting us know which species are doing okay and which species need help. And a lot of times the help that we provide is we propagate. And so, the agency's job really is to keep common species common and to prevent species from becoming becoming rare, threatened, or endangered. So we actually propagate, reintroduce, and restore populations of endangered species.
And does that include mussels? I mean,
So,
I mean, is there like I don't know if it's a mussel hatchery or what? How is it described? Is that what it is?
So we do have a mussel hatchery. It's in Gallatin, and it's the Cumberland River Aquatic Center. So, that would be a whole other thing. But
is it an in-stream facility?
You're not going to do it in the dirt.
No, I mean, they could have, there's a lot of
I'm curious.
farming and that kind of thing that goes on in oceans and that
are we
kind
off
of thing.
topic or what?
No.
But it's just, this is
It's the at-home show, Pandy. You
There
never know
is
which
no-
direction we're going to go.
there is no off topic.
Okay, good. Well, the Cumberland River Aquatic Center, I mean, it is really our gym as far as our endangered species program, because we actually we take species that once were thought extinct, like the pale lilliput, and we can find one or two of those. And we've got someone there at the Aquatic Center. Her name's Wadan, and she can take one mussel and create thousands.
Wow.
And so what we have a species, pale lilliput, that was once thought extinct, and now we have thousands of them under one roof that we can put back once we get the habitat, in good shape. So we work a lot with private landowners working towards habitat, and I'll talk about that today.
Nature
with
Conservancy
native
and-
plants is
Awesome.
what we can do to improve water quality.
And that all ties back into why you're here. We're here to talk about native plants today, and whether they're biological, of animal origin, or of plant. Taking care of our natives is really important because if we don't look back at what's gotten us to this point, the future might not look as bright for us. So there's a lot of things that natives bring to our gardens, to our landscapes, and to our overall environment that you just can't get from hybridized plants. So
absolutely,
give us your elevator pitch for why people need to have natives in the landscape.
Absolutely. So natives, native plants, in particular, they do so much better in the area that you live if you use the native plants that occur there. I mean, native plants are accustomed to all these incredible temperature changes of Middle Tennessee. They're used to being wet part of the year and dry part of the year. So they are so much more adaptable to the climate and the landscape than are other plants that have been propagated someplace else.
And especially for neophyte gardeners, people who are newbies, starting off with natives is really a natural place to begin because.
But I want to have banana trees, and I want to have poinsettias.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's kind of like having training wheels on a bicycle. If you're not really familiar with it, it's a great place to start because they naturally grow here anyway. So that gives you a clue to tell you that there's a really good chance that they're going to be able to survive even with some neglect, and new gardeners are a little prone to that because they haven't quite gotten the knack of it yet, and that's where people like us step in to try to help train them. So what are you advocating as far as how people should approach their landscapes?
Right. And so today I'm going to share with you what these plants would look like on the natural landscape, what their natural habitat is. And Kim is the great perennial gardener. So when you have specific questions on, what do I feed?
They've been saying that about you for years.
in my yard, how often am I going to water it? What am I going to feed it? What type of soil type does it need? So as I was saying, I'm a wildlife biologist for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and then I'm with another group called the Tennessee Naturalist Program. I'm the founding chair of that group, and we're naturalists, and so we do everything natural. And so, thank you for that organic, soil mixture. That's wonderful. But yeah, we focus on the natural things. And so, I'd like to talk about like we're going to talk about trees, and we're going to talk about shrubs, and we're going to talk about herbaceous plants, and how you can use them in your yard and the benefits that you get, because if you use native plants, another benefit is wildlife.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of the things that we're talking about today are beneficial to wildlife. And, you know, just behind me here, we have just a dogwood. Most everyone's so familiar with dogwoods. That's, you know, if you are a neophyte gardener, you know, dogwood's something you can start off with. It's an easy tree to get going in your yard. It'll tolerate some shade. But, you know, dogwoods have a beautiful flower that folks are familiar with, opposite branching. But then it's got those incredible berries. And so everybody loves dogwoods. Everybody loves bluebirds. And so if you want eastern bluebirds in your yard in the fall, you're
there you
going to
go.
plant some native dogwood
Okay,
trees.
Kim, now jump in there now.
Well, I was thinking about a couple of things in regard to native plants for me. And one of the things when I finished the Tennessee Naturalist program maybe 3 years ago. And one of the things that I really learned about was, and started thinking about, was native bees. Right?
Right.
No, my classes were held out at Owl's Hill Nature Sanctuary. I forget now how many acres they have out there of natural habitat. But guys, do you remember like maybe 10 years ago, I started noticing that we didn't have a lot of yellow jackets. Literally, as a perennial gardener, I'm stung once a week.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I just noticed I wasn't getting stung anymore. Or I also noticed that, like, say, if I bought bulk hardwood mulch, right, fill my truck with it, I get to the center of it, I usually run into a hive. It wouldn't be a real aggressive one, but again, bees. And I noticed that I wasn't seeing them. So, with native plants, I'm really attracted to the way they
Pollinators.
feed our native bees. You know, we're so focused on the honeybee, and everybody loves honeybee, and we all love honey, but they don't travel very far.
Right.
And they're not the guys that are
The workhorses.
they're not the workhorses. Exactly. So that's what native plants, what attracts me to them. Plus, there's a pretty good palette of them, as Pandy is about to show, everything from perennials that, well, like the Virginia bluebell, that's only going to last for a few moments, you know, to the Rudbeckia that she has. It's going to take us through the whole summer. But I'd like to step back just a moment and talk about the Tennessee Naturalist program. It can be found at, TennesseeNaturalist.org.
TNNaturalist.org.
All right. So basically, you know, the basis of the program, guys, is to invite all Tennesseans to come and learn about the natural history of our state, to want to become stewards of our state, and then we want you to bring your kids in, because we've got naturalist programs for children as well. But the basis of it, and look, I'll tell you what, because, you know, I don't have any degrees whatsoever. I've just made every mistake that can be made. Well, at least I thought so. But we'll see what happens this spring.
There's
Right.
And we got some mistakes.
We haven't got to the end of the show yet either.
Yeah.
We're-
We'll see about that. But, you know, guys, basically, Tennessee Naturalist instruction covers a range of topics and disciplines, including geology and ecology, plants, forest, trees, birds, mammals, invertebrates, reptiles, amphibians, aquatic environments, nocturnal organisms, and naturalist skills. And so what the program really did for me was make me want to learn more. Right. And
Well, that thirst for knowledge, I think, is what we
Yeah, that's
all
the whole
live
thing.
for.
That's what school is.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's what
really,
class is about.
being able to cultivate that and get people intrigued and gain the understanding that you need to have to be able to understand why these things that we're going to talk important. So,
Well,
Andy,
and
why
I
don't you give us a little of that information? Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
I had a
Like
quick-
Kim was saying, so last night I was just refreshing my memory on when some of these things bloom, and then when you use the native plants, you know, you start now, you know, early March and mid March, and you're going all the way through to winter, and then even in winter, you've got things that are attractive in your yard. We can start off with the redbud, the eastern redbud. A lot of folks are familiar with this, a beautiful lavender. It's got a red bud, but the flowers are actually a lavender color in the spring. This is an incredible plant and take care of. But, you know, a lot of folks don't, you know, I like of plants, and which family
communities,
plant
yeah.
communities. That's right. But red buds are a legume. They're a bean, and so they have a really cool blossom that's purple. That
and they're very tasty also.
Yes, they are.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, so another class that I do for the Tennessee Naturalist is the wild edible class. So not only do I like native things, I like edible things, and so in my yard that I can pull in for my classes. But you can take those beautiful lavender blossoms of the red bud, and you can put them on a salad, and there you are with a green salad with these incredible lavender blossoms on it. One thing you do need to remember: they are a legume. If you have a peanut allergy, you're gonna have an allergy. So that's what we teach you in wild edible class. Make sure you are 100% on the identification, and then know what you're eating as far as what group or family it's in.
I'll inject this quickly, and this is a great opportunity for people to perhaps consider what and how they're using pesticides, herbicides in their yard. And if say you have a beautiful red bud in your yard, you're wanting to use that as you're talking about, you need to think about not using herbicides and those kind of things, because guess what? Everything uptakes those chemicals, whether it appears to affect them or not. You don't want to be ingesting that stuff. So,
and other things to consider in regard to that, like I have a client that we did a Florence garden, right? Just stone and rock, and specific about not using any chemicals in it, if you will.
right.
But the lawn is treated all the time.
Wow.
See, well, we quit
Right.
treating our lawn 3 years ago, and so that means what?
So
We've got native weeds growing in it, or weeds that probably not all
Wildflowers,
native.
David.
Yeah.
Wildflowers.
The only weed.
A weed is
plant
only a
out of place.
displaced flower.
That's it. All right, so Pandy, so take us along the path here. Well,
Okay,
build on
all
what
right.
we're talking about.
Very cool. Yeah, and so the other benefit of those blossoms is nectar for butterflies, insects, and so you're going to see a lot of those bees, coming to those lavender flowers. And again, exactly what you were saying. But if you spray any of these things with insecticides, you're just going to, stop any of the butterfly or insect activity. So you definitely want to stay organic.
And that's another great value of the natives is that they tend to be naturally resistive to pests and diseases.
That are native.
That doesn't mean that they can't get anything, but they are obviously able to endure them.
Well, red bud is basically bulletproof. I mean,
Pretty much.
And I'll tell you what,
It's a good one to start with. Yeah.
our country roads are about to light up.
Oh,
man.
It's
absolutely.
going to be a
About to
glorious
light
spring
up.
for them. They really are.
Yeah.
Now, Pandy, what I think people forget about Tennessee and from Middle Tennessee to the Tennessee River into the Smoky Mountains is that Tennessee is one of the world's hot spots for biodiversity, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
it is, I mean, we have more species in that small geographic regions than a lot. It rivals the Amazon in
Absolutely.
ways.
Really?
It does.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so if you're going from swamps in West Tennessee to high mountains in East Tennessee, and then you've got all these unique habitats in between.
Yeah.
So you've got right here in Middle Tennessee, you've got some of the most unique plant communities in the world because we have cedar glades. And so cedar glades in Middle Tennessee have incredibly unique plant communities. So absolutely. I mean, the Duck River is considered to be the in North America.
Mm.
I mean, it's
That is amazing.
Right here.
I live next
Right here,
River.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's got 315 species of fish in it. And that's more fish than there are, in areas of Europe. So we incredibly diverse. And I do the amphibian and reptile class for Alice Hill's Tennessee Naturalist
fun class.
program. It's great.
And if you're listening at home, we have brought in traffic to add ambiance to this. So apparently we've got trucks that are cruising.
talking about country roads
There
going
you go.
down.
That's just to add a little flavor
Yeah.
to it. So
Yeah, so Bob English and I do the amphibian and reptile classes at Alice
It's a
Hill.
fun class.
It is great. But what you were saying, Tennessee is the salamander capital of the world. Whoa. And a lot of folks don't
there's a
know.
little stream that runs right down the nursery. And as a child, my grandmother had a home here where the parking lot is now, and my brother Mark and I would spend countless hours catching salamanders, and of course we would keep them a little while and we'd turn them back loose again, but and didn't think anything about it. It was just that cool thing, and still today there are salamanders that are out there, thankfully. So
yeah, and I'm going to jump topic just because you mentioned that. One of the things I've been doing this winter, I've lived in Northwest Davidson County now, and our streams are eroding so much in Northwest Davidson County. I live on Bull Run Creek,
right,
and I can stand there and plops will fall into my field, will fall into my stream, and I'm sitting there watching this. This winter, I have been planting and planting and planting. One of the things I've been planting are buttonbush. And so, buttonbush is a native plant that lives in wetter areas, but it's one of those species that you can plant near your banks to help that bank erosion. Same way with nine bark. I've been planting a lot of nine bark this
Cottonwood?
winter.
I just learned
Would
about
cottonwood
buttonbush this year.
Would cottonwood be a good
Nine
choice?
bark. It's one where the roots grow laterally instead of down, and so it's really helping
helps
with
to bind the soil together to keep it.
Yes.
And
Plus, those big old catfish will get down in there underneath the bottom of them.
I don't have catfish, but I've got bluegill.
Bluegill.
And I
Okay.
have I'm out there feeding my
red-eye bass and that kind of thing. Now,
Yeah.
of course, one of the difficulties with the changing nature of environment in our creeks, are an example of that is that they're being asked to carry a lot more flow at times than they ever were in the past. We have some rains of magnitude that previously we just weren't getting, and so that exacerbates the problem greatly in that you've got this increased flow. So if we don't have good measures in place to prevent that erosive flow of water, that problem is going to get worse, and it's going to get worse to some extent regardless of what you do, but certainly that helps to mitigate it as much as possible to hold on to that soil, because that's one of the big problems with all of these rains is that it takes our soil away.
Right, and we have more what we call impervious surfaces,
which
Concrete.
which means that the water
concrete.
flows off.
It doesn't
versus
percolate.
sinks in. So it's
Right.
basically, but roofs too, concrete roofs, pavement.
Right.
So anything that water doesn't sink into the soil but flows off of the soil, is stormwater runoff.
And that's part of the urban nature
That's
of people,
correct.
is that we create this as a part of our
We don't
lives.
like to get wet.
We
really
even
don't.
when we live in the country,
Right.
I live, Bull Run hasn't changed that much.
Yeah.
But still the water flow has.
Yep.
And, but anyway, that's what people can do though, is they can bioengineer the banks of their streams by planting buttonbush, silky dogwood, nine bark, black willow. Joy just told me that you guys are going to be getting some willow.
Yep.
So willow is a great bank armorer. So just something to be cognizant of, that people can they can protect their streams by putting in a lot of plants.
And by the way, all of the things that you ladies are showing today are selections right out of the nursery here.
Absolutely.
And Joy
Dog-
Bovin, who is our
the nursery.
perennial expert and our champion of our natives. She does a wonderful job. We'll talk a little bit later on about our Bates Nursery Botanical Boot Camp. She's got several different episodes on there where she does a great job on talking about natives and biodiversity, and so you're going to want to check those out when you get a chance.
Yeah.
So what's
Couple
next on
comments
your
from the
palette?
Facebook page. Well, I've got
Excellent.
before we go here, I've got a couple of comments from the Facebook page. A viewer from Good morning, and loving this show. Yes, knowledge is power. So learning.
Yes, well, that's really what we're talking about today, is knowledge, accepting and seeking the information that you're going to give us right now.
Another
So-
one.
Guys, we can barely hear you over here.
Yeah, good morning, because of the truck that's out there. I mean, we're rolling and going.
All right, we've got we had large trucks come in this morning. There you go. That's a little better. You can hear us.
the volume?
We've got we've intentionally brought in large trucks this morning to make to give ourselves.
We
Try
gotta
to have
Kim,
some
we gotta-
difficulty going on.
Yeah, we have to give Kim.
We don't want it to go too
I'm the
smoothly.
special one.
But another one was Good Morning at Home.
There we
I
go.
am grateful for the program and about native plants. Good to see you, Kim Bradley, and good program, Pandy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so take it away again. Jump in
There
there.
we go.
Hey, so let's white oaks. You know, the agency always promotes, and the agency being CRA. I like to sound like the CIA, but the agency. But anyway, the white oaks are a plant that we always recommend. Again, they're easy. They're native oaks with our oak hickory forest here in Tennessee. But the other thing is that white oaks produce acorns every year.
Yes.
Now, northern red oaks are beautiful. They've got great form, but they only produce acorns every other year. So if you want acorns every year,
So they're biennial in natures. I mean, there's a place for that, obviously, but it doesn't sustain all of the life that feeds off of those every year.
right. And so you're going to have things as far as our mast production is going to go up and down, up and down. But if you want it to be consistent, then you want to plant white oaks in your yard. And is there anything for oaks in general as far as helping them with soil?
Well, now Dave can answer that a little better than I can. I know that oaks. If I live in a camper, I love my camper life, but I have an oak tree. But now I've just learned it must be a white oak because I get pounded with them, with the acorns all the time. Not to promote the tree.
And
but
she
that's what
likes
came-
that.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe
They are messy. I mean, a mature oak tree can put off
So in other words,
bushels
that's
after
something
bushels.
to
of
consider. That's something to consider when planting.
By the
an
way,
oak tree.
Michael Rhodes says hello to Kim Bradley.
Tell Michael I said hello.
You just
did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
Okay, let's move along then. I guess we're done with the tree portion of it. Now we're going to move down to shrubs
Yeah,
there,
let's
right?
look at some.
here, hey, I'll grab one. I'll give
go for
Pandy's
it.
voice a break. Rudbeckia, of course, the black-eyed Susan. You see
Right.
them all over our interstates, and a mainstay in the perennial garden. When all the guys are tired of entertaining us, this guy gives us a mainstay, along with a few other ones, echinacea, things like that. But if you like to attract finch at the end of the season, now my job as a residential perennial gardener is to keep things deadheaded.
Right.
Right. But I have a few clients that don't want me to deadhead. And even though it may look unsightly to some people that may live on Linwood Boulevard,
The finches are not
the
unsightly, and if you
the
want
finch are
them,
not unsightly at
Right.
all, and they love those seeds, and very, very important to them. Something else that I noticed, and I don't mean to grab a spotlight at all, about
Of course you
native.
do.
Yes,
Well,
we know
okay,
you better
well,
than
all
that.
right.
Come
I
on.
almost combed my hair this morning. I almost-
Take it away, Kim.
and this is something that I just stopped doing again because I'm a residential gardener. I'm just becoming involved with clients in particular that are up in the Fairview, Williamson County area that are doing native gardens, but they are not cutting the gardens back like I would normally do. In the homes that I work in Davidson County, and so our native plants really provide a wonderful habitat over the winter.
Well, leaf litter for moths and butterflies.
Yeah,
I mean, isn't
and
that?
the perennials too. And one thing that I noticed, guys, that was really cool. I was out in a native county, and when we got all that snow, man, they started popping up from everywhere. And it was really awesome to see. So now I've found myself encouraging people not to cut those gardens back.
well,
if
there's
you- if you
definitely
can
a
pull that
place.
off.
There's definitely a place, and to your point, a lot of people are embracing the less manicured landscape style, and that's what you're talking about. It's something that has a more free flowing and natural look to it, the way that you expect to see it out in nature.
Well, when I first started in wildlife, we had a situation called manicured syndrome, where people
Yeah.
want to manicure so much. But, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And so I love my wild patches like that. And this winter, we did have a situation where the pine siskins, a type of little finch, they got salmonella. And so everybody was told and clean them with a bleach solution.
Right.
But what did I have left for them on? The Rudbeckia.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. So those seed producing.
Let's see. I have a couple of other favorites over here. Would you pass me the Columbine? I absolutely love Columbine. A lot of people don't like it because it just can pop up everywhere all over the yard.
Place it on the wooden crate
okay,
there
here
so
we
I
go.
can get a close up of
All
it.
right, awesome.
It's Tyler Blankenship
I
running the
personally
show
love
this
it,
morning.
and-
That's right.
Old ghost man here.
It's a spring bloomer, early spring bloomer.
Yeah, April. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, April. And the color diversity is awesome in Columbine. I mean, just awesome. The seeds are very easily collected. I've seen them grow in sun, shade.
Gravel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, and the thing, your point is that they're very tough and if they're easy to get established, and they will
keeps giving.
They will spread themselves somewhat. So you're going to get good value for it.
And they don't last that long either. Their blooming period is a pretty decent blooming period. But as far as if you want to keep things looking green and stuff like that, Columbine is eventually going to die back on you pretty quickly. Now, here's something that...
One more thing on Columbine. They got
go.
a red flower, and hummingbirds.
Oh, that's
love
right.
Red
And
flowers.
especially this one called Little Lanterns. I don't know if you can get that.
Yeah.
I love Columbine. I really do. I personally love the blue and green ones. Let's see. Let's talk about garden phlox. That's a native phlox. Now, another one of the mainstays, one of our summer mainstays is garden phlox. We also know, I don't know if, surely we have a native creeping phlox, don't we, guys? Do we have a native creeping phlox? Because this gets pretty tall, right?
Well, yeah, most of your native phloxes are all more on the upright side.
On the
I don't
upright
know.
side.
I don't think there's no native
There's
creeping
not.
phlox. I don't think.
No, a lot of times that can be vinca.
Yeah.
Well, but there
No,
is
there are
there is a
others.
creeping
You're not
phlox
right,
that's
you're not
thrift.
right.
I don't know that thrift is a native. I think it is something that has been brought in from other parts.
That doesn't do any harm.
It
love
grows so
that.
slow. I don't know how that it could.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, you got that. Yeah. But anyway, so I call them to be native and awesome blooms and a great pollinator attractor. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing about the Tennessee Naturalist program that I enjoyed, learning about the various pollinators.
Well, and it's very important to keep, if you want to get the maximum benefit out of this collection of native things, it's good to have an understanding of how there's a symbiotic relationship that goes back and forth between the visitors that come to the plants, be it hummingbirds or bees or whatever, and the different flowers at the different times of year.
Right, and
goldenrod.
when you're providing native plants for butterflies in particular, you want to provide the nectar plants, which are going to have the flowers and the nectar, and then you can provide the food plant. Now you're going to have to be willing to let your plant get eaten if you're
Yeah.
going to provide
Right,
the food
right,
plant.
right.
Like
But
milkweed, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
like milkweed.
And
Yeah,
if you're
for-
going to
for
bring
monarchs.
things like monarchs through and keep them fed, because that's one of the most fascinating creatures there are. And I have actually been into Mexico where they overwinter, and
wow.
the butterflies that are there have never been there before and will never be there again. There's 5 generations removed each time, so the part of the miracle of nature is that they somehow know that they're going through Tennessee up to perhaps Canada, and they're going to wind up back in Mexico. A 5-generation span that it takes for them to go through this reformation process of laying eggs and go through the pupa and chrysalis stage and all that, and emerging as a butterfly and continuing on. So it's having food for those migratory types of things is really important as well.
Right, and in our mission of keeping common species common, folks would have never believed that the monarch butterfly would be petitioned to be listed as an endangered species, but it is being considered now whether or not it should be listed as endangered. And that's because of, again, the pesticides on the landscape, but also, once upon a time, folks, when they farmed, they would leave these buffers around their crop areas. And now we can pretty much plow the entire area,
Right.
and leaving those buffers without things like the milkweed and the wildflowers that are
I
nectar.
love milkweed.
Oh, absolutely. So what folks can do is they can plant the butterfly weed and the milkweed, the common milkweed, and create great food and nectar for monarchs.
Now-
and then that's a great
Yeah,
for
goldenrod, a late summer,
Mm-hmm.
Early fall, tall yellow bloomer.
That's you.
They're spectacular.
That's you.
But they really are spectacular.
That's you.
And we. It's an issue.
Yeah,
that-
go ahead.
Yeah. Goldenrod does not cause allergies.
No, it doesn't. That is a big misconception right there.
Yes. When I worked at Warner Park, which was in the 80s, the 80s. But the weather people even during that period would say, "Oh yeah, and there's a high allergy alert due to goldenrod," and we'd be on the phone, "No, goldenrod."
It's just the pollen that's out there.
Yeah. The golden by insects, and so it's got heavy nectar that the insects are coming to.
Right.
It's not wind blown, but because goldenrod grows near ragweed,
There's a
you
good
didn't
one
see
there.
the ragweed, but you saw the big yellow blossoms of the goldenrod.
I love goldenrod.
And what a colorful accent it is to the landscape in the late summer, early fall season when you've got those brilliant golden plumes up there. It's really magnificent.
Along with the black-eyed Susans, paired would be gorgeous.
Yeah. But and goldenrod for me is like one of the last hurrahs, man. You know what I mean? Where I've got that brilliant color and it's nice and tall, and then it's for me personally, it feels downhill from there.
Okay.
But
No, I know it.
I love it though.
But then you've got beautiful seed pot.
Well, then you got the
even
beautiful
into the
seed pods,
fall.
yeah.
Yeah.
How are the natives going to deal with the cicadas this year?
The 17-year cicada. I was just listening on NPR about the 17-year.
Well,
They're a great source of nitrogen for one.
Obviously, cicadas are not the end of the world.
No.
Although it might feel like it for a couple of weeks there, depending on the severity of them. And that's what we don't know. I remember one that I think it was back in 88 or 80, not exactly sure the year, but we had one year when, they were really, you
Late
could not
90s.
ignore them. You could,
98 was a good one.
and I don't
too.
know if they'll be
remember
quite
98.
that way or not, but the point of it is that they too provide their little spot in the ecosystem, and there's a reason why that there's a 13-year and a 17-year, because those numbers don't multiply where they hit at the same year very much, so that. Well, it's important from a reproductive standpoint. They don't want. It's not good for those to interbreed very much because it creates a different type. So, and there's always a few that are off cycle. So it's that's another topic for another day. But let it suffice to say that it's not the end of the
Cicada
world.
interbreeding here on the At Home Show this morning. All right.
That's the way it goes.
I was sitting here thinking, the effect on the plants. The larvae have been suck on the roots, and so they've already been having an effect. And then the adults, they have the effect when they start laying their eggs in the branches of the trees. So if you get just a huge number on one particular tree, then you're going to affect the branches. But I would think pruning would that, if you see some damage.
A little bit damaging particularly to smaller trees, and basically to flagging of branches where they've deposited eggs underneath the thin bark, and then a wound is created there, which makes a weakened spot, which eventually can, if it doesn't heal over properly, can break off. Right. So it's just a matter of a simple little prune. It's not. It's not going to kill your Japanese maples or any of those kind of things. It's just going to be a thing that we endure. And believe it or not, we've somehow made it to this point. So we don't believe that this will be the exception, that this group of cicadas will be the end of horticulture as we know it.
Right. And I'll tell you what, I was just listening about this on the way here on NPR. And speaking of recycling in nature, if you will, they're great for your compost. You're going to have dead ones everywhere.
Protein. Protein.
Yes, yes. So for the ones that are on
The
the
keto?
sidewalks,
Are they keto?
They're keto friendly. Yes.
I would
If
think
they're
so.
robins or and whatever.
I don't know what you mean by that.
No,
Never mind.
Okay,
Eat
what
'em.
I'm
that's
We're
just
gonna eat 'em.
That's just Josh. Just
all right.
disregard.
Just
Remember,
Josh,
There I was
There
paying
goes.
attention again.
From,
But they're a great source of nitrogen and awesome to use as a fertilizer. And actually, that's what they do for the earth. And I think that I saw something on seasonal forest that stated that as far as their the way they fill their earth, they are the largest source of natural nitrogen at one time. So they play a large role.
they've been storing it up for years, and then they give it all back. Hey, we're going to pause for just a moment, ladies, and talk for just a minute about Bates Nursery and Garden Center. That's where we are.
Yeah, we are.
And we invite you to come out and see us. All of the natives that you're seeing featured on the show today are all right here at Bates Nursery. And we have this and we have more. So if you're looking for natives, we really have a broad palette of things to choose from. So we invite you to come out, check not only those out, but all the other great things. We have tropical plants. We have all other types of perennials. We've even got annuals in now.
Annuals.
A limited supply. We're not advocating planting warm season annuals yet, but we do have a few.
Okay.
Including tomato plants and peppers, but you really shouldn't plant them outside yet unless you're willing to protect them.
Buffalo.
Buffalo, he's already made a big investment. A great friend of the show, and had put really
Peppermint
good.
patties
He
down.
had great pictures of it this week.
Yeah,
and
boy.
it gave me cause for concern. So anyway, as long as you're prepared to cover them, it's okay because
Yes.
this is March the 20th, not April 20th, and
Yeah.
that's generally about when our last average frost date is. So come out and see us at Bates Nursery. We've got, truckload after truckload. We I think unloaded 8 semis yesterday.
Whoa.
Plant material, including a great selection of trees, everything you're looking for your garden, be it pottery, tropicals, and of course the best soils on the planet Earth mix. You see it right there on our little sign. So check it all out here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We are conveniently located 1 mile north. Contrary to what Josh says, it is 1 mile north of Briley
it's not.
Parkway at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike.
When you're a mile back.
That's just minutes from Rivergate, Opry Mills, Nashville West, downtown Nashville. And I promise you this, no matter where you're coming from, it is worth the drive. We have folks that make the drive from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, or Tupelo, Mississippi, or Knoxville, or Lexington. So come see what those folks have found out about that we've been beautifying Nashville since 1932, Bates Nursery and Garden Center. And we appreciate your attention and coming out and see us. By the way, everything we sell is available for shopping on our website. So you can go over to the Hourglass and search for whatever, and you can either order that as a curbside pickup item or for local delivery in the metro Nashville area. You can make delivery arrangements right there, including the entire bulk line of Earth Mix products. So check that out, batesnursery.com.
And we've had a question on the Facebook page about milkweed that Renee Bates has answered quite well here as well. But
My decidedly better half.
yes,
Go ahead.
you married up. Adam wants to know
There's
if
a lot of that going around.
Yeah, I know that. Adam wants to know, is milkweed truly perennial in Tennessee?
I don't know.
Yes. I mean, especially common milkweed.
Yes, I'd say that it is.
And
I have milkweed that readily comes back. I've lost like one, but I've had out of all the plants I planted, most of them will come back.
Well, Mrs. Bates says there are 13 different varieties that are native to Tennessee.
Good morning, Mrs. Bates.
Yes.
So there you go.
Okay.
There's all kinds of information out there, and
But
she's
milkweed,
one of
I mean,
the
for folks, I mean,
she's one of the very good sources for information. She amazes me sometimes, the stuff she comes out with. I go, that's.
But does milkweed also, does the seed travel as well, though? I mean, is it reproducing itself by seed easily,
That I do not know.
along with being a perennial? Okay.
I
don't
have
know how
tried
ma-
that and had luck in well composted
Yeah.
soil.
Ah, okay.
But I understand the caller's comment because you can have butterfly weed in your field, and one year they just do great, and another year they don't bloom so much. So yeah, just my experience has been that they may not bloom every year, but I believe that and like we're saying, there's different species, but I do believe that the common milkweed, which is the one with the big globular flower and smells really sweet, is perennial.
But folks, for the real benefit for the monarchs in particular is you need to let the critters eat it to where it looks just like sticks out there. So you don't cut it. Right. You just have to let it go completely through its whole cycle.
And so many of these things have a history. I grew up on not a real farm, but but a farm where you had horses,
right? And
you had hay, and milkweed and hay does not go. You do not want your horses eating milkweed. So a lot of people,
really,
absolutely, yeah. And so a lot of people cleared the milkweed from their fields, and so you do need to know some of these things. You don't want to have a bad experience. So yeah, horses cannot eat milkweed. So that's give them.
Do cows eat milkweed?
I don't know.
I just wonder, maybe that's right.
I think that because they've got more stomachs, I think they can deal with it. Goats,
likely.
I had
goats can eat anything.
Right.
But a horse,
like a lawn.
Yeah.
Horses have it. They're even sensitive to cherry leaves. So even if you have a black cherry and those leaves dry up and fall into your field, and the horses eat that, it's basically like cyanide poisoning to a horse. So you've got to, everybody has their own issues that they have to deal with as far as especially natives.
Okay, so we're approaching the top of the hour here, and we've still got a few minutes left. But I want to get your final thoughts on the message that you want to give to folks to help them understand the importance of why they need to consider using natives and how to incorporate them into their existing landscape plan. It's worth taking a few minutes to take note of the ones you already have. You probably have several and don't even realize it.
Right. And did you want to talk about this native?
Speaking of easy gardening, simple gardening, we have lots of native grasses.
There you go.
Actually, I'll tell you what, and I know I'm running. I know you guys are about to kick me out.
No, we got a couple minutes. I just want to make sure we're aware of it.
We don't have a program director. We do what we want.
Anyway, so I want to promote native grasses.
Absolutely.
I just took on a garden in Williamson County.
By the way, Pampas Grass is not one of them. The one that everybody is kind of, that's the one that kind of got people's attention on grasses. It's quite showy, not particularly hardy, and not particularly beneficial, and certainly not native.
No. Yeah, and when you cut them back, you might find a hibernating snake. Once in a while, and a big Pampas Grass was pretty. Well, until he looks up at you and goes, put the roof back.
Really?
Well. Anyway, so I looked up. Finally, I found a client that only does grasses, and they're all natives, and her name is Renee Cash, and actually I'll be going to her house tomorrow. And so, she's got native grasses, guys, that are from this tall to, I don't know how tall a native grass will get or what the largest one was. But if you want color, especially fall color, and you want the plumes and all that, and you don't want to spend a lot of time in that garden, grasses are the way to go.
And you're going to attract a lot of wildlife in there as well. A lot of birds,
in particular.
Many different. But in closing comments, I'm going to just and then I'm going to shut up. Is my big reason for being here is to promote the Tennessee Naturalist program. I've met the amount of networking that I've done and the level of scientists that I've met. First of all, just made me feel really protected by all them. But in particular, my buddy Mike Rhodes has triplets, more than Mike. Give me a call later. And so I want to promote also, my goal now, especially that I'm getting older, is children's environmental education. So we have Knee-High Naturalist, right?
And
Julie doing Knee-High Naturalist.
Yes,
and I think we also have a program for teenagers. So I like to encourage people to come onto our website, TennesseeNaturalist.org. Check out the programs and the camps and stuff that we'll be participating in.
It's okay to be a neophyte. You just don't want to stay a neophyte.
Yeah.
You want to, that's what you're talking about is the educational side of it. It's not difficult to learn. It's just something that it's really important, and you need to take a little time to develop the appreciation for what Mother Nature has given us here in Middle Tennessee, which is quite a lot. But it does take some effort with the amount of competition for different kinds of plants. You were talking about, how farming has inadvertently taken out some naturals. This gives us an opportunity to methodically reintroduce those into our landscapes, and that's really an important thing, is to make allowances for them to be there,
right,
and make that a conscious thing.
Right.
And then hopefully developers will be listening and watching this program as well. I mean, if they're required to have green spaces in the subdivisions in many locations, let's don't put a Bradford.
Something about that just real quick.
You may.
I would like to apologize to the entire state of Tennessee for the amount of Bradford pears I planted 20 years ago. And I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the person that sold those Bradford pears to me.
Who?
Because I planted them everywhere.
Oh, okay. Well, they were a great plant for a minute.
Well, before we knew,
know.
20 years ago, before we knew, and I'll quickly give this little bit of backstory on the evolution of the Bradford pear and the devolution of it. Is that the Bradford pear was discovered to be, it was a sterile tree, and it didn't. It didn't do anything except it looked like it looked, but it was very genetically flawed because it would split out, and it was we'll get one that's more symmetrical.
Yeah,
we'll start messing with it. Yeah,
and as it turns out, the Bradford is the pollinator for those. So what you get is the spawn, the evil spawn of the hybridization of those two, and that's what you see taking over the hillsides in Williamson County, where it's just a scourge, and it was an unintended consequences. And so, responsible nursery owners like ourselves and a great many others years ago,
we just didn't know.
Stopped selling it. Say, hey, people, I want some of those. The real pretty. No, you don't want those.
Yeah.
That was
because they smell like ass.
It was a terrible mistake.
Fish.
It was a terrible mistake made, and the only thing we can do now is to say, oops. When it goes down, keep it down and put a native tree back in there.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And, I would say, we're encouraging natives, and not everybody is going to plant 100% native.
No.
But
And we're not advocating that.
Absolutely. But if you don't plant 100% native, sure don't plant invasive exotic plants.
Right.
And when we came in, I saw that you had a brochure up on the screen that was Tennessee native plants.
Right.
And so you can Google Tennessee native plants,
Right.
and it will tell you the native plants in your area that you can plant.
I think you're talking about this one right here.
Absolutely, landscaping with
awesome.
native plants.
There you go.
Absolutely. So,
There's a Columbine in there.
there you go. So folks that are out there having to dig up all these invasive exotics like privet and honeysuckle, multiflora rose, and talk about learning, unfortunately back in the early 80s, 70s, we planted those things for wildlife.
Yeah.
All righty, folks. Well, music means that we've got to get out of here.
Hey, Kim Bradley, Pandy Upchurch,
Man,
thank
that
you
was
both
great,
for being
guys.
on today. We really appreciate it. Great information, and make sure and check out the efforts of these ladies and a lot of other great folks over the Tennessee Naturalist website, tnnaturalist.org.
If you missed something, go back out to YouTube. You can watch us there. The shows are archived everywhere I'm going on. Share the word about the at-home show, because we're going to be here next Saturday morning.
Absolutely.
Certainly are. For everybody here, we want to thank you. We'll